Welcome, everyone. It's a great pleasure to have you all here to hear one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, Zach Tumin. I think so much of him that I trusted him to supervise my daughter at the NYPD, and she's still alive, so I'm grateful to him. Uh, Zach Tumin has a long and really enviable background. Started working for the mayor of the city of Boston, uh, worked for the district attorney, Elizabeth Holtzman, here in New York. He's been a senior executive in the Board of Education here in New York, and most envious of his time as both as a work partner, but also a co-author with Bill Bratton, who is the most significant public figure that I've had the honor to meet in my life. Zach and Bill Bratton wrote the book Collaborate or Perish. Great read. I'd encourage you to read it. Zach is now a professor here at Columbia. He teaches multiple courses in management and technology and recently published an award-winning book, Precisely. Again, check it out. It's really good. And it's already won honors. And it talks a lot about what Zach will talk about today, which is data in the world of AI and Trump and Trumpism worldwide, uh, but most particularly AI and how we make decisions. So, Zach, thank you so much for doing this for us, and
My pleasure, Bill. Thank you.
I'm done.
Okay, great.
You're
Well,
on.
thank you for the kind introductions and good to meet everyone here. I see we've got strong participation today online, which is indeed welcome, and it's also a reflection of how important this topic has become for all of us, both in the research community, in the practitioner world, and in life all around us. We see AI in every conceivable corner of the world, and most of the time we don't even see it. And we're here today to talk about, sorry, excuse me. We're here today to talk about one particular aspect of the corporate and government experience of AI, and that is the question, in the age of AI power, do managers still matter? And if so, why? And what then, what kind of work should they be doing, or do they find themselves doing? Now, we're going to start with a quick notes. One is that one of the wonderful things about teaching at SIPA is the international student body. It's a reminder of how global the reach of the school is, but also of what the diversity of offerings and the diversity of candidates for a degree is here at SIPA, as one would expect from one of the top universities of the world. But one of the other side bonuses of that is that you meet incredibly smart and wonderful people as students, graduate students. I had the pleasure of writing a book here called Precisely with Madeline Watt, who is a student in my class. She is the co-author, and I am now at work with another former student, Rasmus Edelman, on a new book for Columbia University Press called AI: The New Face of Power. So it sort of is a treat to discover a great talent that's here at the school, and the eagerness to learn and to share the wisdom that comes from sitting either in a seminar room or a lecture room with dozens of interested and passionate partisans to knowledge and to inquiry. So I'm pleased to be here with you today. Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining. I raised the question straight out: do managers still matter in the age of AI? I'm just going to get my cues correct. So you're going to help me do that, right? Okay, great. I have Monica right here to my left. So if anything, if I have to, and you see me go like this, it's because Monica is trying to thwart the inevitable, which is me screwing this up. I'll make every effort to not to do that. So So yeah, do managers still matter in the age of AI? Why even ask that question? Well, managers have always mattered most. Um, uh, when technology has changed the rules of engagement. So the question isn't whether managers matter, but the question is what kind of managerial work matters now and why it's changing fast. So if you're going to show me how to advance this slide again, aren't you? Thank you very much. So let's look at which one are you going to want me to use now, please?
I think that works out.
Very good. So when technology it moves as it has now with AI, and as it has in over many eons and generations of time, managers step up and find themselves in a new role. Just very quickly, we saw in World War II the great example of what are called Liberty ships. The United States produced thousands of them. It was not based on a miracle new material, but it managed mass production at speed. That was a managerial effort. The management produced modularity and standardization, process learning, continuous improvement. And it was all in the care of a great corporate leader, Henry Kaiser. Kaiser Permanente was born of that effort. Kaiser Permanente was the original industrial-based insurance program for a workforce. And Kaiser was also instrumental in breaking the color barrier and the gender barrier in some of the heavy industries of the United States at that time, and it set the stage for leadership and for what it meant to be a manager forevermore. Toyota, another example. It wasn't a robot story; it was discipline, flow, quality at the source, and continuous improvement. And of course, the digital scale, where we moved from the 1990s and 2000s, was not software per se, it was process redesign. Certainly it was software, but also built in were incentives and accountability and decisions that either accelerated or slowed down uptake and adoption. And I think it's safe to say that the upshot is that winners are the ones who will re-architect the operating system. It happens all the time. We see it large and small, whether it's electricity, whether it's telephony, whether it's transportation. It is all the same. So then, if that's the case, then why are organizations flattening management now? A lot of organizations are. They're delayering, they're cutting middle layers, they're calling managerial work overhead, calling it friction. And the implicit premise is AI is autonomous, or will soon be, so management should matter less. And I'm going to argue here that that premise is exactly wrong. Yes, it's true. AI is moving towards autonomy for sure. But our claim is that AI doesn't, if it doesn't remove the managerial problem, it moves it upstream, we say. That's to say, prior to anyone reaching a decision, AI has become involved in setting the stage for that decision. It has been involved in creating models that predict and project. It has been early on involved in setting the value proposition of and optimizing what the organization is trying to do. So while the old job for managers has been to supervise downstream decisions, and here's one now that's coming through the door, hand it to you, it's over the transom. We know how to do that. The new job is designing upstream systems, and that becomes mission critical. Value appears only when the models become coordinated in action. And managers in that respect have become the conversion layer. And by which I mean the new job today is the classic job is translating resources into outcomes. That job continues to be true. However, it's placed very differently today, and it requires a different set of skills and a different set of architectures. I'm just going to give you a quick example of what that might mean. Monica, I'm going to need your assistance again, please. Please. Thank you. So here's a case that comes from the West Coast. This is a case that I've written up in draft. It's called Minutes Matter. It's about stroke detection and projection. Takes place in a hospital, UC Davis in Sacramento, and one of its affiliates, the Adventist Health Rideout in Marysville. And here's what it does. The system flags through angiograms that come in, possible large vessel occlusions, and within minutes it pushes the image and alert to the stroke team, while physicians remain responsible for review. That alert functions like a switch in the operating system. It reroutes attention. It starts escalation earlier. It compresses time across a transfer network. And the numbers were impressive at the hospital where it was introduced at Adventist Health Rideout in Marysville. Its early numbers show why this feels so powerful. It tees up. They reported door in, door out dropping from 202 minutes to 109 minutes after launch. Preliminary numbers, yes, but directionally meaningful. And but only management can turn such capabilities into reliable and auditable and multi-hospital operating models. And that's really going to be the challenge going forward. Having proved that it can do this, the next stage is most critical. The flow that has been managed well in this instance, and which we see quite often, is the development of models, then the insertion into workflows and taking action, looking at outcomes, getting feedback. In this case, the inputs have been data capture and imaging quality and timing. The projections and inferences are of what will happen with this patient if we do nothing, and therefore what should we be doing, the workflow alerts channels to what's coming in, schedules the escalation path, and then outcomes are observed in time to treatment and clinical impact. And the feedback then includes being able to override or continue with investigation and intervention. So this is where AI projects power or fails to, and most AI failures are exactly here in these conversion chains. And it's not surprising. The technology is different. It's new. You can't simply tack it on to an existing workflow. You need to reinvent that workflow with your teams and make sure that it works for them as well as for all concerned. So the clinical stakes here are high. Minutes matter. The workflow involves human recognition and imaging and interpretation. And the key shift then is that it reallocates attention and urgency and coordination before deliberation. And all of a sudden, that changes the very nature of work, high stakes work. Gatekeeping in the workflow means power. Shall I do that? I can do that in wishes. This is when I should abandon ship on this one and do that. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. One of the things that we've taken pains to do is to look at how does AI power look and feel different from classical power formulations. And there are three that come out of the political science literature, and that's what we're looking at here. In this respect, there's decision power. Who decides? If you want to know who's powerful in an organization, who's making the decision, that's power. If you want to know, there's a power to create agenda, set the agenda. It might be for an organization, might be for a nation, might be for a unit. Agenda power shows and makes determinations about what the organization is going to surface and pay attention to. There's a third source of power, which is the power to create beliefs about what's legitimate and what people will accept as normal and defensible. These are the three classic phases of power that have been talked about for 50 years. And AI, we would argue here, adds a fourth phase of power. We call it preemptive power, exercising anticipatory influence that's embedded in systems. And anticipatory power translated means influence shifts upstream of choice before choices feel like choices. Okay. the content of preemptive power actually is found in what we call a series of engines that are universally, I think it's safe to say, that universally comprise the essential elements of preemptive power. The first is pattern making for us to recognize signals and anomalies in linked events, for entity recognition, to identify relevant people and objects and conditions, dynamic mapping, live pictures of networks and flows, dependencies, optimization, allocating scarce resources under constraint, personalization, tailoring actions and interactions um, uh, uh, in at scale, generative synthesis, and here comes generative AI, turning complexity into drafts and options, and so on. So the key link here is engines power cognition. They are often combined inside what are called agents and agent-like workflows, and um, they gain power by ranking, taking all that material that we saw before about agendas and decisions and belief systems, ranking what will rise first, routing who sees it next. The defaults that it sets are what happens unless it's stopped. The thresholds are what triggers escalation and action. And the cues that it sets are what waits and what moves forward. Now you can see how powerful this becomes. And all these things are decided before a decision maker comes to the table to then ponder what then should we do. You can see how this sets the stage dramatically for managers in what we will call supercognition. And it's the ability to recognize, to gather all this data, move it, get it ready for decision, and do so within the context of one of these six engines. And indeed, for managers, then not only to work with one engine, but to work with multiple engines. And I think you can see in the stroke case example that there are multiple ways in which AI is functioning: pattern recognition, dynamic mapping of workflows, issues in readable text and understanding, giving meaning to the data that's coming across. Managers, and this looks like inherently cross-boundary work, your clinical teams and IT and vendors and compliance and risk and leadership. Managers make coordination reliable. They share definitions and escalation rules and ownership. In practice, then, in the age of AI and in this matter, management becomes essentially workflow or architecture and operational governance. These look like boring, perhaps my eyes glaze over sort of concepts, workflow organization and operational governance. But this is where the heart of decision making has moved in the world of AI. And so we're going to take a look at this for a little bit. I'm going to you better go back one. Back. Okay, and then forward. Thank you. Okay, so then we're not helpless here in confronting this new world that's in front of us. We have some classical tools of managers, tools that theorists and researchers and practitioners have recognized and have developed over the years. Just a handful, and they are all incredibly important here as we begin to think about how do we manage our way through the great possibilities of artificial intelligence and what it might mean for us, as well as the great risks that it poses, and how to find that sweet spot where we are realizing the true value of what we can do for health or for sports or for public safety, for food security, for child welfare, for education. Above all, we see elements like Mark Moore's strategic triangle, Professor Simon's levers of control, how you organize beliefs and boundaries and diagnostic metrics, John Doerr's Measure What Matters has become legendary in Silicon Valley, but it's also incredibly important here because we're moving to a different thing, a different way of thinking what matters and what's possible here. Because one of the wonderful things about AI power is it makes much more possible. We'll bring greater insight, bring more data to bear, and we can distribute it so that decision making can reflect that and then be measured and well balanced. We are always going to have political difficulties in bringing this kind of new research, new technologies in. Clayton Christensen spoke of value networks. That's where it turns out that resistance to technology innovation is completely rational. That's classical managers' jobs are to stop intrusions in existing and successful workflows. That doesn't do much for innovation. But Tarun Khanna has also called our attention to the challenge of institutional voids, where we don't have standards, we don't understand liability, we haven't trained well enough, and handoffs are essential. Managers' jobs are to see those and spot those, and in the world of AI power, they are everywhere. So that becomes part of the manager's toolkit and part of the manager's responsibility. And most importantly, I think among all these is Russell Hardin's coordination is power. I mean, coordination, he will say, means bringing together all of the possible players to create a single outcome that's shared and agreed upon. That takes rules and trusts, takes interoperability. So coordination turns out to be an essential element as well. When we look at let's go to the strategic triangle for a second. Let's go forward one slide. Thank you. So this is the idea of the triangle, that there are three elements of it. One corner is the value offer. What's the promise of what a manager sees in this new innovation, whether it's technology or whether it's workflow, whatever it might be. There's a value proposition here that is supposed to energize and mobilize political support, as well as gain support from talented people around the workforce who want to be part of the future. That said, another corner is that a leader, a manager, has to be authorized, has to be seen as legitimate. We can't just walk in and declare thusly, this is what we're going to do. We have to have some license to do this. And it's not a license that is going to go on forever. Very often we have licenses to innovate that will last 60 days, 90 days, maybe a year, maybe a political term, but it doesn't go on forever. But we can't operate without it. Many people have to act in the name of leaders who give them that authority. And lastly, and most importantly, is the capacity to deliver resources. That's budget, that's technology, it's platforms, it's data, it's all the right people. So capacity, legitimacy, authorization, the value proposition, they're essential. Now let's go back one slide then, please, if we can, or also just jump ahead, but let's try. So in this way, when you're looking at going forward with an innovation in AI, you have to be clear about this vision of value and what you are trying to optimize. We can see in the stroke case, we're trying to optimize well-being and speed. Typically, we trade those off in different ways when we have imperfect information or when data is moving much more slowly. Now we have incredible information about what we are seeing and what's going to happen if we don't take action and when. That also changes the equation for patients. People we thought were in serious condition that aren't so serious these days, or people who look like they're in great shape. And we know from the data, however, that if we do nothing, they have their life expectancy can be quite short. So resources and capabilities are essential. Can we execute the conversion chain reliably and learn fast? Authorization and legitimacy. Will stakeholders accept it? Will the doctors accept it? Will the nurses accept it? Will practitioners accept it? And can we defend it under scrutiny? The practical takeaway is what we call weak corners. They don't produce power. Those weak corners on the triangle produce fragility, non-use, backlash, breakdown at scale. And so it becomes the manager's principal job in the world of AI power to assess what's needed and to move forward to strengthen it. Let's go forward then from here. What's interesting, I think, for AI and for managers here is all of a sudden when we've moved backwards in time up into the decision stream, the design is the big preemptor. Defaults and thresholds and routing rules decide what's going to be decided. Think of it in the stroke case. Um, Deciding which configurations of data will deserve what kind of routing and what kind of attention is incredibly important. That takes it's great deliberation, proving models. And if you go too far off the route, people are going to turn away from your model and do it the way they've always done it. Execution then it becomes the differentiator. Can you roll it out? Can you get your routines and adoptions under correct supervision? And it creates a new ethical burden. There's harms of commission, um, bad actions at scale, harms of omission, missing guardrails, missing opportunities. There are extraordinary opportunities here, for example, in the stroke case, to intervene very quickly, or to step back and say, we don't need to. We thought we did, but we don't. Those are difficult choices. Those are not the choices that are typically made before this. Those are what are wrestled over among physicians. But today, the prospect exists that they won't wrestle with those, they'll wrestle with another set of choices. Key to all this is going to be proof in learning. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. All of which is to say that we have this world then of AI and AI power of new possibility frontiers. The trade-offs aren't the old binaries. Either it's safe or it's fast, but it can't be both. We know we can achieve safety and speed at once. How? Because we see data and let's us analyze, let's us create models that will let us achieve that. That means that the combinations that become possible, if designed well, are those that a manager must embrace and must take stock of, and in doing so make trade-offs explicit, not bury them in thresholds and defaults. That gets tricky, but essential. Let's go forward then from here. The proof of a successful instantiation of AI power then is experimentation. Test and prove essential for every point of the strategic triangle in governance. This is not academic. It's how you govern reality under uncertainty. Find what works in the real workflow. Latency and exceptions and incentives. Reveal where conversion is breaking down. And test the fit, the roles and incentives, status. So these are the ways in which all those dimensions, both of acceptance and of rejection and of embrace, can be assessed and revealed. Let's go forward for a second then. But there's always going to be leakage then about what you're looking for. Adoption leakage. Are you going to be ignored? Are doctors going to route around you? Action leakage. Okay, so who owns this on our scale of this? Action leakage. People see the output but don't know what to do next. Outcome leakage, learning leakage, no logs, no review routine. There are all sorts of experiments will tell you which leakages you actually have, so you don't fight the wrong battle. Let's go forward for a second. We know there's weak value when we're optimizing for speed, neglecting safety or equity or downstream constraints. There's weak capability, possible weak legitimacy. If adoption breaks, Christensen says, expect it. And legitimacy is also weak and not predictable. Let's go forward. We're gonna close out our discussion here with a couple of imperatives for managers. We understand we've taken a look at what the new role for managers is, what the tools are that are available to them. We understand then that there are some imperatives for managers in the age of AI and super cognition, and we can characterize 4 non-negotiables that are going to be part of the manager's toolkit, leader's toolkit, really. Non-negotiable number 1 is clarity about optimization. What are you trying to achieve? And what won't you trade away? As you build your, quote, black boxes, as you create your super cognitive capabilities, as you embed these decisions in agents that capture the essence of your capabilities. You're going to need as well disciplined edge case handling. These are the edge case handling. This is the exceptions, the escalation, the overrides, the incident response. You're going to need to maintain your legitimacy at all times, and you do that by audit and by traceability, by accountability, by contestability. And non-negotiable imperative number 4 is operations have to assume drift, that you're going to fall off your targets. You're going to miss. You're going to have to come back and refix because your legitimacy is at stake. Your political support is going to be at stake. And if you have clarity about optimization, you'll need to update that if you're seeing operations that drift and are not achieving what you thought they were going to go do. So our sense then, let's go back for a second. So our closing question as we approach this next wave of AI power is if supercognition can see and act upstream, who designs the upstream and who is accountable for what it does? I'm going to close my presentation with that. We'll be taking this on in my course at Columbia this semester. We have 12 weeks where we're going to be wrestling with these issues. Each week we'll have a different case study to give us the kind of insight that we can gain from storytelling, men and women in decision, in action.
Yes, please feel free to ask any and all questions. Serena.
Good evening from my side. Good day for you, or wherever you are. Good morning, good night.
I'm in New York.
Good to see you. Thank you, Zach, for the presentation. It's nice to see some Colombian fellows, colleagues, peer, call it however you want. I've been doing a little bit of work with AI in innovation processes. So not necessarily with regards to optimization or productivity. So I'm curious, what would be the role of the manager in that context when they're trying to treat or use the AI to make the organization more ambidextrous, both for the business as usual and making things look better and optimize it there, but also for the new types of technologies, businesses, innovations,
Sure.
Inventions, if you will, where AI also has a role there. What would you see as a balance for the manager in that context?
For the manager in that context, I think the balance starts with just with understanding where the friction is in an organization, where AI would be appropriate to create a potential solution to reduce the cost, to accelerate speed, to keep people safer, more healthy, and to do it with due care. When you start moving innovation into live workflows, much is put at risk. Planes can drop from the air. Children can die in intensive care units because they don't have their pharmacies quick enough. It is, on the other hand, lives can be saved by the many, many thousands, perhaps, or efficiencies gained. The key here is to understand in innovation how much, how far, and how fast you can move initially, and to do it to set the terms of success in a way that matter to people. Show them outcomes that are crucial, that they would be willing to support, and indeed essential to get as you test and prove prototypes, pilots, do so in a way that can get value into the hands of users fast. Get it done in a 30-day sprint, a 60-day sprint. Prove something material that's in concept, doable. And mobilize your support, both for those who will gain and those who will lose in the offing. I think that it's always been the case for innovation that if you can avoid the kind of combat that innovation engenders by leaving people in place, let them do their thing, no worries, no problem, don't try to pull the plug on it, but create a secondary system that runs side by side, that actually will get done the work that people want done and get it done faster or cheaper, or more fairly. And those three big E's of efficiency and effectiveness and equity are the gold standard here for innovation in any world. Certainly for those organizations that are not born digital, but that are always inquiring and inventing new ways to do old business, dealing with old workflows and old and established hierarchies is critical here. So innovation is very possible. It has to be managed very carefully. Don't ask too many permissions. Try to fly under the radar if you can. Love a good under the radar innovation. You won't get away with it for long, but you might get away with it long enough to surface some incredible gems, build some support, and come back and say, we can do this for real, guys. Look at what we've done just with this limited installation. Is that helpful?
I really like the last bit. Don't ask for permission, but forgiveness afterwards. And if you can make this process in 30 days, that's a lot of people won't notice what you are cooking. So that is perfect for confidence building. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, more power to you.
We have someone in the chat, Sinan, who says, nowadays I am drafting master's thesis related to AI and sustainable trade finance. In the age of AI, thinking of PhD programs is a waste of time? ? I am an accountant, by the way. Thank you, Sinan. What do you think, Zach?
There's a world of practice. I come from a world of practice. I have 2 master's degrees. Anyone will tell you 2 masters don't equal a PhD. If what you want to do is proceed in the PhD route and end up full-time faculty position or full-time research position. But I recommend developing your innovations as Serena suggested, and championing them, learning from them, and creating your portfolio of successful ones that matter to mentors, sponsors, colleagues, and that you market your wins in ways that help people understand the value of what you've done, and you take a victory lap every time you get a chance. Modest, don't get me wrong, don't go around with bells and whistles on, but don't undersell what you've done. You've accomplished something mighty by bringing forward AI innovation, AI power innovations, whether on the battlefield, public safety, and public health. These are all can be tremendous gains. Write it up, have someone write a case study about it, and bring it to the world's attention. Don't be bashful about it. It takes a lot to get stuff going.
Absolutely. And Serena added in the chat that since she started her PhD in 2021, so much has already changed. So we are always pivoting, aren't we? And then we have a question from Emiliano in the chat. What about digital twins to make control experiments for AI?
Love it. So digital twins are creating 2 lookalike worlds, one the real world, one a world where you begin to simulate change. Incredibly effective, incredibly important to be able to do, either on a small scale or a large scale, and to prove and test your theories that way, offline in a sandbox that give you safety as well as insight, and let you move quickly without disturbing the status quo too mightily. Digital twins are an essential part of a manager's toolkit. They are commercially available. There are firms that will help you set it up. You can set it up yourself. But then it needs to be authenticated and validated. But yes, it's an excellent part of the experimenter's toolkit. What is your experience?
If Emiliano, if you'd like to unmute yourself and answer, please feel free, or you can write in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you. It's a very good integration about both. I think so.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
great. And we have a question from Dr. Emick.
Hey, Zach. So,
Bill.
question from our former worlds about police and fire. In the police case, CompStat and trying to predict crime, AI could be enormously powerful there. But as you also recollect, with stop and frisk, the data would also often drive you to stopping people of a certain age and background, which translated into the public discussion as racist bias. So that's how does AI potentially affect that? And flip it, part two, similar but not the same. We now have predictive inspections in the FDNY to monitor and basically direct local firehouses to inspect the most dangerous buildings first. Again, that could end up being always targeting low income areas and politically might be interpreted the wrong way. Any tips or thoughts about how AI could be managed to account for those kind of potential political problems?
Thanks for the eggshell walking possibility here, Professor. Surely these are the most important issues that a police department or a fire department or any public agency would face. The issue of equity, even in the face of wherever the data might take us. The data has to be pretty good if you're going to make some predictions about focus and target. But I would always be careful about mass predictions. People like this are always like that. The models that we use are imperfect. It's not to say stop and frisk, for example, in the police department isn't essential in some instances, but as Commissioner Bratton showed, you can bring down stop and frisk by hundreds of thousands of instances to a bare minimum, and you'll see crime fall as well. So something about the models needs to be inquired and made to be and built to be assured and confer legitimacy. If you look at cases like ShotSpotter, here's another instance in which we see AI being used to triangulate shots and in different neighborhoods of a city. New York, for example, is one of them. But it takes a lot to convert that into crime reduction. Now, there are many benefits and there are many costs in introducing that kind of ShotSpotter technology. Benefits can be forensic. You're there faster at crime scenes, maybe, but it takes a lot to convert that technology into outcomes on the ground. And a police department must be ready to mobilize. Not many are for that. And if you ask cops, as we do in our management sessions, if I gave you $10 million to buy more advanced ShotSpotter, or I gave you $10 million to buy more cops, which would you do? There is never a question in their mind. They would go for the cops. That would be, and so we need to understand those models and what it takes to be successful with them before we roll them out and say, let us embrace this as a matter of policy, because it takes a lot to convert that into outcomes of value on the ground. And there are a lot of casualties. I don't mean death casualties. I mean casualties of fairness and equity and perceptions of righteousness that will happen if you don't manage it well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. I think we have time for one more question.
Great.
Anyone?
What will it be?
Oh, here we go. Someone in the chat. In organizations where platforms and data are already in place, what political or institutional dynamics most often prevent leaders from converting AI capability into real power, and how can they intervene without triggering resistance? Great question.
I have an idea. First of all, it's a great question. Let's write a book about that.
Yeah.
It's certainly one of the most important issues that we could take on here. Your platforms, your data are going to be gathered with a purpose, and they have to be applied with that purpose. That means you have to have political support to translate those investments into outcomes of value on the ground. It means you have to prove it, and you have to test it, you have to experiment it. And if you can do that, and then marshal that, as Serena suggested at the top of our questions, if you can do that, then you're on your way to unleashing some of the power of AI here in a responsible and creative and productive way. If you can't do that, if you can't test and prove and demonstrate and get value into the hands of users fast, if you ask them to wait around, they're not going to. They're going to do their thing. And that is when the investments begin to fall by the wayside. So as you develop these capabilities, being sure to run your experiments in ways that are visible, transparent. I mean, look what Uber does to achieve its phenomenal growth by experimenting with dozens and dozens of different configurations of who wants what, when, where, and really extraordinary success and awareness of the crucial legitimacy that comes from building sound experiments and making major investments in platforms that result. So, but let's bite that book anyway. You should leave with hope and optimism for a future that is far better than the one that, if anyone were looking at the world today, was in the offing. We have to concentrate on goodness for the people who are around us and people in the world that we can deliver for, and keep the faith with that, and hold to the goodness that's possible. Technology can help us get there, but it takes good spirit and it takes fortitude and courage in the meantime. So I wish everyone all the best. Continue your inquiries, continue your best efforts. Come and talk with us. We'd love to have you around the school and be part of the world that we're trying to create here at SIPA.